You'll see that message that pops up. Okay. All right, everyone. We'll get started in just a moment. So thank you for joining us today as we learn about the Chinese Zodiac, which is the year of the dragon, I believe. And joining us for a presentation today, Yvonne Wolf. A little bit about her. Yvonne's an intercultural consultant and founder of the Chinese Intercultural Company. She speaks on a variety of topics. And as I mentioned, she'll be at the library May 6th to talk in person, giving another presentation where she helps clarify the elements of Chinese and East Asian cultures in an accessible and relatable content presentation. Yvonne shares the knowledge and skills that she's acquired having lived in 4 countries where she became fluent in 3 languages. So impressive to that: Chinese, Mandarin, English, and Danish. She's worked with organizations and business executives focusing on communication strategies, working with the Chinese and East Asian partners. Among her many skills is mediating across cultural misunderstandings. So we'll get started. And before I hand it over to Yvonne, again, just a quick reminder, I'll be monitoring the chat. We'll save the questions for the end. And then after the presentation in a day or two, I'll email everyone a link so that way you can rewatch it, or if you want to share it to a friend, we'll have access for a couple of weeks. And without further ado, I'll pass it on to Yvonne. So take it away.
All right, good evening, everyone. And this is so fun to see you. For the season, we are officially starting the Lunar New Year season. So this season is not just one day. Now, Lunar New Year this year arrives on February 10th. That means currently we are not in the Year of the Dragon yet. The Year of the Dragon arrives on February 10th this time, and it will be a season where the celebratory season is 15 days, which means that it will probably by the end of February that the dragon have been properly welcomed to the season, to the end of the season. So first, I'm going to share my screen. I want to share with you what it means to be what zodiac animal you were born in, and what does it mean in the culture. So give me a second. I'm going to start with my slide so you can see that you're at the right program. That the Chinese Zodiac and You is what we're going to be talking about today. Now, this is a topic. This is a big topic. So, given the time we have, we can answer about 5 of those big questions. So, I'm going to give you a little introduction about myself, and I'm here to welcome you to the Chinese culture. And some people might find that lots of things about Chinese and East Asian culture seem very puzzling. Well, because, it's traditionally a non-Christian part of the world, so many things that you might find very understandable, the order in which our world is put together, organized, is very Christian, or even, let's say, alphabetical. Like you go to the library, you need to look for a book, it's going to be alphabetical, right? But not so in China. So there are no alphabets. So those kind of things can be very disorientating, and they can really hamper your understanding of that part of the world. So I'm here to help you, in a sense, be a tour guide for getting through to this very interesting culture, and very complex, perhaps, in the sense that we need to rethink of how we understand that part of the world. So first of all, you might see a rat or a mouse right here, and this animal is the first of our zodiac animals. So let me just turn on my writing tool so that you can see where I emphasize. And this is the zodiac. Start with the year of the rat. Currently, we're in the year of the dragon, and I'll show you on the wheel which one it is. The year of the rat actually started in year 2020. So if you think of COVID year, that's been a few years ago, but that was the beginning of the whole zodiac wheel, or the first of the 12 cycle. So the Chinese Zodiac and You, today's conversation, It's going to have about 5 questions I can answer. And most of my programs, the purpose is to bring out more conversation. So I'm here to help you understand a little bit more about that part of the world, and hope that you will find more questions and more conversations to have with people, because now you have something that is a beginning of conversations. So first of the questions, what is the Chinese zodiac? Is it every few months, like the Western horoscope? And what does it mean when this lasts a whole year? Does it start on January 1st? Okay, and the second question is, how does the Chinese zodiac differ from the Western horoscope? So that's something that often people think that's the closest we can think of is the horoscope. And the third is, are there good animals or bad animals, right? Everybody wants to know which are the bad ones. And then the fourth question is, what does the zodiac animal mean to the people of Chinese and East Asian heritage? They play a big role in who we identify and what we think of ourselves. And then lastly is, how does my zodiac animal impact my life? Well, the first topic, the topic that I'm talking about, would be highlighted. So this gives you a sense of how far we're going and where we're at. So first of all, you might see the page with the rat, and the rat is here because the rat is the first of these, the 12 animals, the zodiac. Now, so first of this question is, what is it? And how does it span this time? So like I mentioned, that the Western horoscope may be from a few months, and the Chinese is by years. So the first of all, it starts with this symbol that you might familiar with. It has a black and a white, and that's the yin yang symbol of Taoism. So this whole zodiac system came from the Taoism. And you might have heard of Taoism with the T or Taoism with the D. D is from Mandarin, and T was the translation that the Western languages used originally. So Taoism means the way. It's an ancient Chinese philosophy that talks about the role of nature in creating the order of the universe. So it's based a lot on the observation of nature, such as the sun always rises from the east, and it sets in the west. So those are the laws of nature that Taoism feel like you cannot change. Okay, they are just nature, and you cannot change that. So some of those rules will sound like the best analogy or the connection I can make is very much like the Native American traditions that are so based on nature. And here are where animals become part of that observation. Taoism looked at animals and saw what they were good at, and they were very much role models of what humans could do. So this is the way of learning. The Taoism saw the zodiac animals as a way of learning, of seeing what nature has to teach us. And all these animals have what we call positive attributes, admirable attributes that we humans can emulate, and so we can pick up some of their good qualities. So first, you might see this sign, this Taoism sign, this black and white thing, and you might notice that there's a curvy line. Okay, now these two yin energies, the yin and the yang, and the yin is the dark one. Okay, and it literally means shadow, and the yang part, which literally means the sun, is this white part. So that's the sunlight. So the yin and the yang is the balance of two energies, the dark or the shadow versus the sun. The sun is the hot and the shadow is the cool energy. So these two are constantly at play. So when you see that curvy line in the middle, that means that it's fluctuating. It's never like hard line, it's never just straight. So because the curvy line shows that sometimes the hot energy is a little stronger, and sometimes the yin energy, the softer energy, is a little stronger. So that is what it represents. Now that's I'm very much simplifying a very huge philosophy, and there are of course volumes and volumes of books on this topic. So just let me give you the simple definition so we can understand how they apply to the animals in the zodiac. So this wheel, you might be familiar by seeing it in Chinese restaurants, right next to your Chinese food. So what are these animals mean? Well, first, these 12 animals are part of a wheel of time. And so this is a way of measuring time. So the wheel turns this way, as I've shown in the arrow, and the rat is the first animal. So you see, the 2020 was our special year, and it starts the whole cycle all over again. So many people ask me, well, what determined these animals? Why were they chosen? Well, the best way to answer this question is by telling you a story of how they came to be. The Jade Emperor wanted to throw a party, and he wanted to invite all the best animals to his party. And he said that when you come to the party, whoever crosses the river to the party destination first will be selected as part of the 12 zodiac animals. Well, this was very exciting news for all the animals. Now, at that time, this is long, long, long ago, in ancient times, and a long time ago, the rat and the cat were good friends. They were the best of friends. They were eating together, they were sleeping together, they took care of each other in the winter, and they hunted together in the summer. So the rat and the cat were best friends. So when they heard of this invitation, they thought, wow, this is good. We brothers, let's go and be the first animals at the party. So the rat and the cat started on this journey. Well, the rat was always very smart and was smarter, much smarter than the cat. Well, and when they traveled all this way and they finally came across the river, the rat thought, why should the cat be invited to be on this zodiac panel where I am much smarter than him? I can do better without him. So the rat saw opportunity. He saw that the buffalo, the water buffalo, you see the oxen is a water buffalo in this picture, in the story, and he saw the water buffalo crossing that river. And so the rat made a deal with the ox. He said, why don't you take us on your back so we can go across the river just as well? Well, the oxen says, okay, hop right on. And the rat was on the head of the ox. And the cat was very scared of water. You know, the cats don't like getting wet. The cat climbed on the oxen's back, but he was very nervous. Well, just as they were about the halfway mark on the river, the rat thought, I could be the first animal if I play the cards right? So he decided to push off the cat. So the cat got pushed into the river, and he was just trying to survive and trying to swim. Of course, the cat can't swim, and he's just frantic in the water. And then the cat made his way back to the original bank of the river. He came out, and he was just huffing and puffing and just about to die. And the cat said, oh my gosh, how did this happen? And he is now on the other side, and he cannot cross the river. And the rat, on the other hand, was just nudging forward as the oxen was not even aware. The ox wasn't even aware that the cat fell off. And the ox made it by his nose to the other side of the bank. But the rat jumped off from the oxen's head onto the land, and he became the first animal that led the zodiac. So then the oxen was the second, and the tiger came last, and so on and so forth. And do you notice there's no cats on the zodiac? The cat never made it. So that's when the cat vowed that from this day on, I shall forever be the enemy of the rat. And that's why the cat always chases the rat. So it might be such that the story was that simple, but many times people also wonder about why these animals were selected. Now there are many theories. Some of them were saying that, hey, they were 6 of them are edible, and then others said that, well, other 6 of them were very courageous. They have very good role model. They have good models for what we do. But now, how do you explain the dragon? Now, that is a question for later. So let me tell you about more about what the animals were like. Now, when I mentioned this yin and yang, um, let me see. So first we have this just an overview, so we can get to more questions. So how does the zodiac differ from the Western horoscope? Well, I mentioned already a little bit that there it's not within a year. It is each animal has their own year. Okay, so let's look at that wheel again. But and we'll start with another question about calendars. Now, before the Gregorian calendar is what we are using today, what did the world use? So maybe putting that question a little differently, how do we know that today is January 24th? Now, 2024, in fact. Now, I'm not talking about a deep philosophical question. I'm just giving you a practical one. Now, believe it or not, even in the second half of the 20th century, that is really when that most of the world were using the same calendar. Before the 20th century and even early 20th century, and we're talking about maybe Agatha Christie time or World War One. If you travel across the world, and let's say you ended up in Middle East, it would not be the same date as a Western calendar. That's the same as if you were to go to East Asia in, let's say, World War One time, even World War Two. It was not the same date. So that meant that there were many calendars operating. So you might have heard of a Persian calendar, and of course the Chinese lunar calendar is how we determine when New Year's arrive. So these calendars, and I'm just going to talk about the Chinese lunar calendar, it was in use for thousands of years. So it's quite an amazing feat to think about that in the 21st century, we are finally on the same date, that most of the world is using the same calendar. And this calendar that the Chinese used, the lunar calendar, was developed a long time ago. Now, using this calendar, they were able to conduct trade, commerce, and really predict many things according to the lunar calendar. Now, the lunar calendar is based on the moon, so it is not as accurate as our current Gregorian calendar. So this this lunar calendar meant that there's only 30 days per month, and it started on the new moon, and the 15th would be the full moon, and then the moon would wane to the new moon again. So this cycle was not, as I said, not as accurate. So every year they will have to add a month, or every other year they have to add a month. Maybe this is familiar to you from a Hebrew or Jewish calendar. So for those reasons, the calendar wasn't something most people can figure out. We have to go to authority, use an official calendar and find out when Lunar New Year would happen. So to this year, February 10th is the first day of the year of the dragon. The previous year, the year of the hare, and we're still in the year of the hare, we're considered on the tail end of the year of the hare. This year of the hare started on February 5th, 2023. So it's not exactly on January. It's that because of the Lunar New Year, it floats somewhere between the end of January to the middle of February. And using this calendar, people were able to determine when the solar solstice and the winter solstice and so forth. Now, when I mentioned the yin and yang, now this is a way that the Chinese saw the world, that it has yin periods and yang periods and different strengths and different from soft or to hard, or let's say hot and cold. So this is the way that the Chinese saw the harmony, or trying to get to harmony. So each one of these animals, so starting from the rat, when we knew the rat is very smart and the ox is not as smart, but the ox is much stronger animal than, let's say, the rat. So you see, the rat has good qualities and the ox has good qualities too. So they all have qualities that are different, but different strengths, but also complement each other. So that's also why what we call each animal next to each other has a yin-yang relationship. So that means that the rat, let's say, is smart, but an ox is not so smart. Okay, but then the rat is a small animal and the ox is a big animal. So you see, this kind of relationship is constantly at play on every pair. So when we get to the rabbit and the dragon, we will also see that. The rabbit being a very soft, very pleasant animal, and the dragon is considered much more powerful. Okay, so here we are, we're right here around this, and we're getting to the year of the dragon. And you can see that the dragon's almost at the halfway mark of this wheel turning. So to understand this Chinese culture and the kind of logic it has, I would like you to consider and allow me to take you back in time, so when we can understand this concept of time is much different. Okay, so when we measure in the West, we look at 2024. Well, that's a big number. Okay, in the past, people didn't count to 2000 or 1000. That number was already too big for them to use practically. So think about the terms of billion and trillion. They are big numbers, but they were not very useful to normal people until the computer was invented. So let me show you the way people used to count years and time. So for example, King George III, he reigned from 1760 to 1782. It's very common at that time, let's say, that the common people who did not need 100 even, the high numbers like that, they just use the king's reign. So let's say by comparison, the United States was established upon the blank year of King III's reign. So anybody who's ready to do some math over there, let's say if 76, and what year would that be for counting from King George III's reign? So if there are people out there said 16, that's great. Okay, so that's the idea. So the typical farmer would say, oh, my son was born, let's say it was 1776. Instead of saying 1776, they would say the 16th year of King George III's reign. You see? And that's the way they would count, because King George is not going to live over 100, and it's much more manageable number and much more practical, and for personal purposes, for all practical uses, that was the best solution. So let's say if we were to apply that to our current time, and if the United States did not break away from England, we would have King Charles III, right? And His Majesty, what year currently are we in his reign? Well, since he was coronated last year, we're safe to say this would be the second year of his reign, and that would be very easy. And 2024 would be a much higher number to keep track of. You see? So in that sense, that was one of the functions of the zodiac animals, that it helped the Chinese to count the years. So for example, I always, of course, we remember our own kids' birthdays, but let's say my friend's birthday, my friend's son was born in 2006, let's say, but I couldn't remember, was it 2006 or 2005? And then, you know what? I remember though that my friend's son was born the year the snake. Well, now I would never make that mistake. I can always look back to the year of the snake, and then there it is. It was 2000 something, right? So let me show you this way of, so Chinese would use this. So every animal, as I say here, has a yin-yang relationship. That means that one animal's strength would be countered by another animal's strength in the next year. So for example, so for example, this past year was just the year of the rabbit, or we're still on the tail end of the rabbit. The rabbit compared to the tiger, you see, the two animals were very different. You might say that tiger eats the rabbit. Okay, so that's a big difference, right? Well, the tiger is a animal prey, a predator. So the animal tiger is very fierce, and it is an animal that doesn't hold back. It is an animal that when it's watching, and then when it wants to do something, it will pounce and give its all. So that when we think about the tiger is an animal that is very much control of his ambition. Okay, so we think of the tiger as a strong animal. But the rabbit is not such an animal. The rabbit is calm, it is peaceful, and the rabbit has other attributes that are very admirable. The rabbit is known as the great negotiator. The rabbit is very good at making friends. The rabbit is not rash, and the rabbit is as I mentioned, the negotiator is supposed to create lots more peace and cohesion around them. So you see, they're both good animals in that sense, right? Now, the yin-yang relationship is further complicated by these what we call the yin-yang relationship of the elements, and the water and the wood and the fire and the earth and metal. There are 5 of these elements, and that will make one type of dragon, and or let's go with a rabbit, one type of rabbit every time the rabbit comes around. So there is a what we call a water rabbit, a wood rabbit, a fire rabbit, a earth rabbit, and a metal rabbit. So what this means is that each animal have one of these 5 designations, and it rotates. So remember we said there were just 12 animals? Now, because of these designation by the elements, water, wood, fire, earth, and metal, now every time the animal comes back, we have another designation. So that means that out of the 5 designation of the rabbit, it would become 60 years cycle instead of 12. This will be much clearer and an example later. Okay, so Chinese use these animals to count. And 12 years, right, is not enough, right, for a lifetime. So when you alternate these animals by the elements, so then you have 60 years a cycle. And these 60 years were very useful because most people, that was all they needed. They don't have more than 60. so that way of counting was sufficient for most people. Okay, so now we come to the question of are there good or bad animals? Okay, and this is a question that many people want to know. And many of you out there are probably curious. And I think that one of the most typical situations is when we have, when I meet people and let's say during the year the pig, and they'll say, oh, I'm a pig. I hate that. You know, who wants to be a pig? Well, that's when you're thinking with American logic. Okay, Chinese logic does not see that as a bad thing. So are there good or animals or bad ones? Well, this is our animal this year, and this is a very good animal. So first of all, there is no bad animal. The reason is that Chinese people love babies. So there's no wrong year to have a baby. Okay, every year is a good year to have a baby, and babies are never bad, right? So, so here I'm going to start explaining about these animals. Okay, now I mentioned a little bit about a rat, and you might think that, oh, the rat was not nice to the cat. Oh, well, it's not a good animal. Oh, but it is. Okay, the rat is admired for its smartness, its cleverness. And if you're not sure about that, you might say that, oh, but who wants to be, right, the rat? But then look here. Even in American examples, you can see that the rat is recognized for its smartness. Why else would Mickey Mouse have a dog, Pluto? A mouse having a dog as a pet? You see, the size doesn't matter. You might think that, oh, mice are supposed to be small, but Mickey Mouse is just as big as Pluto. So this idea is that Mickey Mouse is a smart animal, much smarter than Pluto. And if you think about, let's say, another popular cartoon, Tom and Jerry, a rat and a cat, and who is smarter? Many times Jerry outsmarts Tom. And that is, again, a nod to its smartness and the cleverness of the rat. So the rat in the Chinese world is all about its resourcefulness, because you remember a rat can make anything into a home. It collects things, a little shoelace here, a little piece of fabric there, and then it can make its nest. So the rat is considered very resourceful and very thrifty. And also, a rat is a great planner because they think about winter and they prepare for winter. So there's nothing bad at all if you're a rat. Another animal that, from the American perspective, seemed like, oh, who wants to be a snake? I mean, a snake in the grass, that doesn't sound like a good animal. But in Chinese, we consider snake as the little dragon. Okay, and then we'll come to more of that later. Now, another question. Yes, in those three animals, I have to mention that the American worries about being, and another one is the pig, right? And so the zodiac ends with a pig. Many people say, why do I have to be a pig? That's not a sexy animal. Well, no, but in Chinese culture, we see the pig as the only animal that knows how to live. They don't worry, they have parties, and they enjoy friends, and they don't hold grudges. They are also the animal that we think of that speak his mind and be happy and not worry so much. So this is a quality that we think of the pig as positive. And being a little bit, chubby or full in Chinese culture is not a bad thing. It's considered someone who can eat without worrying and someone who can really, truly enjoy life. Now you might, let's see, we mentioned a little bit about the ox, and the ox is considered a hardworking animal, and it's also very honest. It's not an animal that knows how to lie or pretend to be someone else. So now let me explain to you more about some more animals. Now, I mentioned that there's no bad animals, no bad zodiac animals, but there are some more preferable than others. So there are, let's say, the leader of the packs, right? So of the 12 animals, there are 3 that are considered much more preferable. So are you ready? Okay, we're going to start with the 3rd place winner. Now the 3rd place winner, and these are not designated by my personal views. This is actually very much proven by fact by the birth rate. And you might find that funny, but yes, these birth rates tell the tale that nobody can deny. And this is predictable, and it happens every time these animals come around. Birth rates go up because that proves, right? That proves with money down which ones are the most preferable. So the third animal that's most preferable is the horse, coming in third place. The horse is considered one of the most desirable animals because have you ever seen like horses are naturally competitive? You throw wild horses out there, they will run, they will race each other. You can't hold them back. You can't say you're not allowed to run. No, horses will run and they will do their best. So the horses are, so they're considered naturally competitive. They're considered born leaders. They're considered animals that don't know how to quit. They don't know how to hold back and let somebody else win. You see, they will not. They are just the best in proving themselves, and they will not let go of that. So when they see a goal, they go for it. So that's why the horses are considered so favorable. In fact, in some industries, in Chinese and East Asian industries, they will select a horse just because they know they will be competitive and give that edge in everything they do. So now we come to, you see, when we talk about preferable animals, right? So the horse is right here. Now, if, let's say, you were planning your baby and you missed it on the horse's year. Oh, is it much better is it terrible? No, it's not. So you see, you would land on the goat, right? So if people plan to have their babies and they end up not getting a horse, they get a goat. Well, goat in Chinese, goat or sheep is irrelevant to us because the word for goat and sheep is just one in Chinese. If you think about the woolly sheep, that is a Western animal. We don't have such a woolly, fluffy sheep in Asia. So those two words are not very important to us. So then we talk about what is so good about goats. When in West, you think about them being so, they ram your heads. They are not such good companionship, but actually the goat is a good animal too. The goat is considered to have a very docile nature and is beautiful from the inside. So if you think about this, the best way I can relate it to you is that when you take your children to a petting zoo, what animal will always be at a petting zoo? That's right, the little kitty goat, right? Well, because the goat is safe around children. So imagine what animal, yes, would you have around your children? So the goat is considered a very kind and easygoing, actually, and a sweet nature. So it's not bad if you don't have a baby on the ear of the horse. The goat is not that bad either. So now let's look at the second runner-up, or the second place in the best zodiac animal. It is the tiger. Yes, the tiger. Now, the tiger is known, we just, a couple years ago, not too long ago, we just had a tiger, and tiger is fierce. The tiger does not also it reserves its energy, it watches, and then it goes, it will pounce of full force. So the tiger is considered also is the most aggressive of all the animals. Now this may not sound such a great thing, but it is. It's actually, this is where it differs. Okay, in the past, now I'm saying in the past, like when I grew up as a child, in the past, if you were a boy that born in the year tiger, that was super, because it's likely that you will be rewarded in many future job situations as a leader position. Okay, but if you were a girl, oh, that was not the same thing. If you were a girl or born in the year of the tiger, people joked about you couldn't get married. Nobody wants to marry a female tigress. So that was a long-standing joke. However, thank goodness things have changed, and that is not so much a concern anymore. But you can imagine, for hundreds or thousands of years, girls born on the year of the tiger would have to lie about their age. They would have to change that so that they could be another animal that was much more docile and not so scary to be married to. So this is the tiger. Now, tiger, you might think that, wow, well, why, how would you know that people were so interested in the tiger? Well, do you know that in military schools, even now, they prefer tigers. So, and tigers and horses. So if you were to be interested in applying for a military school, those years you will see more of a preference for those schools. Now, the number one, that's the first place in the best zodiac animal. Are you ready? I think a big clue is already given right behind me. Oh, but before we go to there, oh, sorry, I just want to mention that if you didn't make it to the tiger, your child was not born in the year of the tiger, the next one is a rabbit. And we already went through how many wonderful attributes is noted with the rabbit. So now our first place, and it's coming right up. See, it is the year of the dragon. The year of the dragon is by far the most populous year every 12 years. Oh yes, in Asia, in and a recent study, we found out that's not just in Asia, but let me tell you that in Asia, every 12 years on the year of the dragon, you see a huge spike in birth rate. And that's not just China, not just Taiwan, not just Hong Kong, not just the Chinese speaking countries, but all over, like even in Korea, all in Thailand and let's see, in Indonesia, okay? Because the dragon is such a mystical animal, everybody would like to have a dragon baby. And studies done by Freakonomics actually noticed that they traced American birth in Canada and America and United States, and they found out the similar spike occurs in the West as well. Not, of course, not by necessarily non-Asians, but they tracked the birth rate of Asian last names. And because America is such a big country, we don't see the same problems as in East Asia. So in East Asia, when you come around the year of the dragon, it is a headache. Oh, a big headache for all these countries. And every one of these Asian countries will tell you by the middle of year of that rabbit, don't do this. Please don't. Don't have a dragon baby. You know why? Because it causes total chaos in the infrastructure. The birth rate is so so obviously higher that schools have to hire teachers that have to go with has become like loop years with the students, so that the teachers aren't fired the next year, right? Because you have so many students coming to school and they have to follow the students as they grow. Hospitals are more crowded. Birth rates, I mean, you got more people working in the hospitals to take care of these births. And it follows them, not just when we talk about school and the hospital, but residents, living quarters, even till the retirement ages, that you will find competition at university is higher. Just all these things happen because the year the dragon came around again. So you can imagine that many governments in East Asia would put out public service messages to say, please don't do this. You are really making everything much harder and more difficult. But can you ever stop people from doing something like this, from having a dragon baby? It's not easy, but they try and to control such a uncontrollable phenomenon. So if you didn't have a dragon baby, you end up having a snake baby. Now, snakes, remember, it didn't sound so good, but in Chinese, the snake is considered a little dragon. So it's not bad. It's a dragon without the horns. So that is not considered a bad sign at all. And And we have a few more, but I will leave that for the next section. So the question is, again, are there any bad animals? No, there isn't at all. Every animal is great. However, there are some what we call incompatible zodiac combinations, and that is when it comes to marriages and conflicts with people. But that is much longer conversation that we'll probably save for the next section. So what does it mean? So let me give you some examples because there are so many meanings of this, and it is very pervasive to everyone's lives in East Asia because we already seen, right? If you were born the year dragon, it has somehow designated you to a life of competition in school, in jobs, in college applications, and everything. So when you were born in a year that seems to be indicated by so many predestination, you can't help thinking that there is less of a free will and more of a destiny. So let me show you what that means, okay? So what does the zodiac animal mean to the people of East Asian heritage? Well, first of all, I did mention a little already that it helps us to count. So counting is much easier. So we're not necessarily remembering like 2023 or 2022, but just by, the year of the rabbit, the year of the tiger. Okay, and then we know it's every 12 years, so that helps us to count in 12s. So the other uses, so that's one way, and then I'll show you more examples. Protect children. So when a child is born in the year of their animal, we tend to think that their animal would protect them. And then there's a strong cultural identity many times to this animal. And then it is a great way to bond social relationships. And lastly, with all the decisions you have to make about life, it helps you make those major life decisions. So how do we use that? So for example, the way we identify ourselves, right? So a child is born in a year of, this is the year, I think this is dog, okay, but this is way of, we have these little jade pendants, and I will turn off my screen for a second to show you what that looks like in a second. But for example, you see this horse, right? This horse is in a park, okay, and in the Chinese parks, when you see a horse, you will find the other 11 animals. There will be no park that just have horses. Then the other people will be upset, right? So it's very typical that when I was a child, I would go to a park and I find a rooster, because I was born in the year of the rooster. I would go to my rooster and would take a picture. So that kind of identification is very strong. If you go to Chinatown in Chicago, down Chinatown, that there's a plaza where they have the 12 animals, and that's exactly what people do. They go to the animal, take a picture of the animal. So that is a very part of our identity. Now, how far does this go? Okay, so I show you these. You see these little coin purses in the form of pig and dog and the ox. Well, when we were in China last time, and he, because he had a lovey as a child of a cow, he really wanted the cow coin purse. Well, the person who sold the coin purses asked him, well, what's your sign? And my son said, well, I'm a dog. And he says, what are you doing with the cow? Here, you can. He gave him the dog one. He doesn't get that you could be, you could actually want another sign, because that doesn't make sense to the Chinese mind. Is your sign, you stick with your sign. So your backpack comes in dog, pig, and all the zodiac animals. You have charms, as you see, and all sorts of merchandise is made in these 12 animals. So let me show you this. I'm going to stop sharing for a second just so you can see this. I'll show it to camera. Oops, very close. This is mouse, you see, or rat, you see? And these, what they call pendants or charms, are given to children as a baby, as a protection. And this one, you can see that, oops, is a pig. And this one is a rooster. Can you see the rooster? And jade is for protection, so this is doubly useful. And then this is just a little cute little sign of an ox. But these were all very typically made for children to protect them. And then here I have a mug with 3 goats, or sheep or goats. And they are also considered a favorable sign. I think this one is a dog. So let me see if you can see that. Can you see that's a dog? Okay. So it's very common to have, for children to have at least one object that is of their sign. Okay, and I will go back to our slideshow. And then more on how we use them to connect social relationships and to assist in the major life decisions. So for example, now social relationships, if let's say, in my family, and I can tell you that my father was a dragon, my mother is a hare, my sister is a horse, and I'm a rooster. Now, in this social relationship, what I mean by social relationship is that, let's say I know in my family, I have aunts and cousins who are also born the rooster year. So when we get together for family parties and events, we will say, oh, we roosters, like a team, you see, we roosters, this and that. And then also, because of the social relationships of identifying with that same sign, we know exactly how old each other are. So my aunt is, let's see, she is, wow, no, she's not, she's 48 years older than me, you see? And I have a cousin who's 12 years older than me. And I have a cousin who's 12 years younger than me. So that's how you see we can create social bonding and instant relationships that way. And but besides that, there are, like I mentioned here, is that social expectations, right, can lead to self-fulfilling prophecy. So that means that because that strong identity with which animal you are, see, the dragon is considered, for example, to be very charismatic. And as I mentioned, the horse was being a great leader. The dragon is the leader of all leaders. So people tend to think of the dragon as the best of all the animals, and therefore it has a certain, let's see, ring to it. So now the problem with such a strong identification is that, well, what if your dragon isn't the leader of leaders? What if your dragon isn't charismatic? What if your dragon is just a typical normal child? Then it can lead to some disappointment. It could lead to some failed expectations, and that could create, as you can imagine, lots of unhappiness. So for example, here I'll give you another example. The monkey. The monkey is considered a very clever animal, a very creative animal. So then if you are born a monkey and you're not that particularly creative, it becomes a bit of a struggle. It's a struggle to become more creative so you can be a proper monkey. Well, then I'll give you another example of the rabbit. So the rabbit, let's say, is considered a shy animal. So let's say your child, and lots of toddlers and babies are considered shy babies. And then now, because your parents say, oh, you're a rabbit, then we got to help you become less shy. And they give you more opportunities to socialize with other kids so that you can break out of your rabbit shell. You see, this could lead to either a wonderful development or something that may not fit your personality at all. I'll give you a couple more examples. So I mentioned the pig being so gregarious, right? And if you're not such a happy pig, now you are probably considered that you're not doing enough to be the to be the proper pig. Now I can tell you a story about me as a rooster. That when my children, my two boys were small toddlers or learning to speak, and many times the pediatrician would tell us that our boys learn to speak a little slower or later, and I was worried too. All that time we heard about, oh, maybe it's autism, or maybe they're going to be need speech therapy or something like that. And I told my mom, I said, Mom, I hope my Benjamin is going to be speaking at the right age and right time. And my mother said, what are you worried about? You, the rooster, who talks so much? Okay, roosters, there's no way you will have a baby that have trouble talking. And, at the time, it made perfect sense. And I stopped worrying. But if you think about it, what does that have to do with my child speech abilities? But you see, those kind of thoughts are very typical in Chinese logic, and they help us to either feel more comfortable with the future ahead of us or feel perhaps less worried about what the future holds. So now we're going to go to a quick one on, okay, how does my zodiac animal impact my life? Well, as I mentioned, there's so many prophecies already, and then it's very easy to fall into those. And I can tell you that in Chinese environments, or let's say in East Asia, if you work for a big company and then they had a project they want to work on, and here they have 6 people in there, okay, and then the project's not going so well. There's some conflict, let's say, with certain personalities, right? The supervisor this is absolutely typical situation, typical solution. The supervisor come in and look at these personality conflicts and would say, okay, what's your signs? Everybody tells the signs, and then the supervisor would say, I see. Well, I have 3 tigers in here, too much tiger. That's why this is not working. So I'm going to pull a rabbit in and take the tiger out. You see, this is a typical solution in a managerial situation. And they will look at the signs, and then they will make a decision based on what is considered a not uncompatible signs. And then you're going to wonder, I can't believe it. If you're the rabbit, you say, hooray, I got an opportunity that I wouldn't have if it weren't for me being a rabbit. And then if you were one of the tigers, you would say, gosh, I was so close in getting the promotion. If I could show myself in this job, I would have gotten it. So see how those major life decisions could be impacted based on your sign. And in East Asia, you can't help believing a little bit more about that destination. That destiny is to really free choice or free will. Well, that rabbit or that tiger didn't get to choose that. So let's see how this the zodiac will impact yours. Okay, let me see. I think I showed a sign, a link to, yes, your zodiac sign. Okay, so let me share that in the chat with you in case I haven't. If you don't, do you all know your signs? Because then we can also look at that. I shared in the chat. So if you already know your sign, if you didn't, you could use the link to find out. And usually it's the people who are in their January, February birthdays that need to actually look it up. So, and when we come to this sign, you can also look up, who you're compatible with. Now that's a very complicated scheme of things, but I want to end on this note about why the Chinese say life begins at 60. So this year, the 2024 is going to be the year of the wood dragon. Okay, if you were born in 2012, your age would be 12. Okay, and when the water dragon. So, and 24, if you're 24 this year, you were born on the year of the golden dragon. which comes out every 60 years. And see, if you're 36, you were born in the year of the Earth Dragon. 48, you were born in the year of the Fire Dragon. And 60 was the year of the Wood Dragon, the last Wood Dragon. You see? So by the time your original sign came back, you would be 60. Every time, you see, you don't remember the first time, right? So every time it comes back, you're 12 years older. In the Chinese world, we think of that 12 years as being another phase, a very important phase of your life. So you think at 12 years old, you start to remember things. You start to have a defined memory of your parents. And so at age 24, you're probably done with college, done with school, and you're starting jobs and new life. At 36, you're most likely married or have children. And 48, see, these times are all very much a very important phase of your life. So in Chinese, we say that every time your animal comes back, it's here to bless you, it's here to make you reflect on your life. And by the time that it comes back 5 times, so that means your original sign comes back, you will be 60. Now, in the past, and that's not long ago, because when I was a child, living to 60 was an accomplishment. Now, if someone passed away before 60, we feel like, oh, how how unfortunate, because we expect people to live much longer than 60. So the 60 was considered a long time. Now we feel that we expect you to live past 60, and 60 is when life begins. Life begins because you would know what the all those questions and thoughts of a teenager. By the age 60, you would know all the mistakes of not meeting the right person. And by 60, you would know how to talk to your boss. You see? So those are the things that people, all of us learn. And by 60, we're ready for life, finally. So I'm here to wish you a very happy Lunar New Year and a happy Chinese New Year. And I hope you use your zodiac sign to make you a better person, but don't let it limit you for being who you are. So by February 10th, we'll enter the year of the dragon, and we'll close with a short recap. Does anyone remember which is the first animal? And the question of, is there a bad zodiac animal? And lastly, how many cycles does it take to reach 60? And I think you should all be able to answer those questions. And I'll be ready to take some of yours. Stop sharing. Oops.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
That's 8 o'clock. I'm sorry.
No, no, that's all right. I'm just taking a look at the chat. Very informative there. I think one of the questions, there is no bad sign. I remember, I think that was one of the questions you were asking. Um, so to answer that there. Um, very informative. I didn't know all the characteristics of the animals, so thank you for shedding light on all that as well as the historical part of it too. Anyone have any questions that they want to either send to the chat or they want to unmute themselves and just kind of throw it out there? Feel free to do that. In the meantime, one of the things that I thought about to ask, a lot was about the animals, but there's a lot of tradition I know as far as like the color red for good luck. Is there some other kind of traditions that we would see, to welcome in the new year, such
Oh,
as,
yes. Well, that,
wearing red?
yes, I will be glad to answer that. So people ask me, is red a communist color? And it's a much older than communism. So let's say, remember I mentioned the yin and the yang? So the yang is the sun, and the yin is the shadow. So the sun, all the colors we associate with the sun, as in red and yellow and orange, are considered warm colors or hot colors. So in this when we think of the Lunar New Year coming, it is also considered the Spring Festival. So all the coldness that you see out there, you see outside right now, is all gray and white, and that is what we consider yin colors. They're faded and they're muted. So in the changing of the season from winter to spring is the change that we wish to see is turning warmer and turning red. So the red color is always represented joy and happiness and energy, positive energy. So we wear red for to welcome that warmth to come as soon as it can, and then that red is that we pass along in these little envelopes and packages. You see this tiny little ox is in red, is that we pass on this happy and joyful color.
Hmm. One of the questions that came in from Diane and Joe, are rabbits and goats a good marriage pair?
Well, yes, they are. Most of all these animals are great pairs, and then some of them they say they're incompatible, but in that, let's say, in that animal world, you see, like the typically they say monkey and rooster are not good because they're gonna um one is smarter than the other, one's gonna peck the other. But many marriages are fine. So I don't think that they are absolutely work. They are more of certain perhaps certain warnings that people used to worry about, that I think it's best not to listen to the ones that say they're incompatible. I think this and the most people are all very compatible.
Excellent. Yeah, anyone else, feel free to throw it in the chat or shout it out. One more that I think you talked a little bit about, like welcoming change, as far as a tradition
Yes.
is, can you talk a little bit about maybe like out with the old and with the new when it comes to like clothing? Isn't that
Oh
something to
yes.
start the new year as well?
There's yeah, there are. Thank you, Athens. There's so many parts to celebrating Lunar New Year. It's hard for me to cover it all. Let's say, right? So
Yeah.
one of the things is wearing new clothes on Lunar New Year's Day, and that would be February 10th. Now, traditionally, now think about it. In the past, people didn't get new clothes every few months, not with every season. So they probably did it only once a year. In Chinese families, we're a big family. We're talking about intergenerational families. So let's say 20, 30 people in one household. What they would do is that before the Lunar New Year arrives, let's say December or November, they would buy fabric in bulks and then they would make clothes for the whole family so they would have new clothes on New Year's Day. So it's not even going shopping, going out, but that is not long ago. I would say that even early 20th century Chinese people did that. So now the tradition still goes that in Asia you will see a huge spike in economy because people are shopping, they're saving their money, buying new clothes, and some families they adhere to that quite literally and quite strictly. That on New Year's Day in this year would be February 10th. The whole family, children and adults, will have everything new from socks to underwear and your new set of clothes.
Hmm. Very interesting.
Yeah,
Um, Great, thank you. One of the last questions here, a nice compliment from Angie. Thank you about how interesting the program was, but just asking where to get the info about the Chinese zodiac signs. I reshared the link
thank
that's
you.
in the chat there. Um, so yeah, very informative indeed, and thank you. Um, I'll give it a second here if there's anything last, Hail Mary, as far as messages or anything like that. Otherwise, Yvonne will be joining us. I know it's a ways away, but it will be in the newsletter that arrives at your home come mid to late April, where we'll have Yvonne at the library on May 6th, which I believe is a Monday evening. Um, so just look out for that. Um,
I
and if there's, yeah.
yeah, I look forward to meeting you in person. And I think that you can, if you can look for any other Lunar New Year events coming up, that would be great. I full heartedly welcome you to join the festival in many other ways. Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right. Well,
Dragon
thank you.
baby daughter is expecting a dragon baby. See, and she must be 24 or or 36, right? So, congratulations. Ah,
Uh,
I hope to see you. Yeah.
okay, great. I'll stop the recording now, and everyone, thanks for joining us this evening, and look forward to another program where you can join us. And again, May 6th, Yvonne will be visiting us at the library. So
Yes,
thank
and
you. Yeah, have a good rest of the evening and stay warm and see you again.
see you then. See you at during the year of the dragon. Bye bye.